Hey again, everyone, and welcome back to the Monday morning rundown. If you're not familiar with the show, this is just a recap where I kind of go over six scale topics that are happening, right? Hot toys in our damn toys, Blitzway, third party, and so on, and just kind of give you my thoughts and review stuff that I think is pretty interesting. Needless to say, this was another heavy Hot Toys week, right? Hot Toys is just bringing it. Although at the time that I'm recording this, they did drop a little kind of update on one of their products that we're going to get into because yes, is it an update? It's absolutely an update. But is it a good update? I think that's up for discussion, and I think everybody's going to have kind of their own thoughts on that one. I know I definitely have my own thoughts. But look, Hot Toys just bringing the the news and the fire nonstop, right? In terms of releases, they continue to just release. Towards the in this lead up to the end of the year, we're getting release after release after release, but they're not even slowing down in the announcements. Right, this week alone, there are already two announcements, two unexpected ones, that were definitely worth getting into, and again, definitely some interesting thoughts on both. Um, it's exciting to see kind of where Hot Toys is going with everything. But again, happy Monday to everybody. Look, hope you're starting off the week well. We're a little over a week away from Christmas. I'm just wishing you all. We'll probably do one more update before Christmas, but in advance, just hope everybody's enjoying the holiday season. Hope everybody's looking forward to some time off. I am in New Jersey, so I did try to scope out some drones today, but nothing. So um, we'll see what happens with that. But this will be a nice little distraction, right? With everything we've got going on. And again, it's primarily Hot Toys. Although another couple of companies have started making some news stories, right? Exo 6 is marching to the beat of their own drum, and they released a great pre-order that I'm excited about, and they're already teasing a pre-order for this week. And then you've got J&D, who I think a lot of us had assumed was done with the Kojin Works line, especially with the ridiculous pricing that they put on for that original Joker release. But they're still showing signs of life, and they're still showing that they're going forward with um, maybe not completely unexpected things, but with slight variations on a theme. But there's a lot, right? I think the only company at this point that's been kind of quiet in a surprising manner is InArt, other than like the 12 Days of Christmas giveaway that they're doing. Um, Read into that what you will. I'm not going to try to interpret what it is, but they're definitely again very quiet, especially considering kind of the bigger splash they were making at the start of the year, and with a bunch of the pre-orders and a bunch of the 12 scale things. We haven't even seen a pre-order from them other than the Aragorn and the Nazgul, right? Which sorry, not the Aragorn, the Legolas, which were great looking figures, but it's been radio silence from them. So we'll see what's happening. And then third party also still radio silent in a lot of fronts. But you know what? Let's get into it. And um, what are we going to get into first? I'm trying to decide which way I'm kind of going to do this. Um, you know what? Let's go into the news announcements first. And let's start with this guy. So, Ant-Man from Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. So, Kang has already been released. Wasp was already released. Ant-Man is the last figure that we're expecting from that line. And interestingly enough, when that figure went up for pre-order, there was a blurb saying that the head sculpt was not final; it was still being worked on, which was good because I think they reused the sculpt from Ant-Man and the Wasp, which wasn't anybody's favorite sculpt, right? It just didn't capture Paul Rudd, at least to me, and I think a lot of people would agree on that. So we've been waiting for the updated sculpt, right? Hot Toys has been showing a habit of going in and updating their products in kind of this lead up to release. So this was not unexpected, right? The only question became, with how poorly this movie was received, was Hot Toys going to do, was going to put a lot of effort into this, or were they just going to half-ass it? And it's just an interesting update overall, because the first thing I'll tell you right now, it feels like they are struggling to hit Paul Rudd's likeness. It's an improvement. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's not an improvement. I do think it's an improvement, but there's just something off about this. There's something really off, and I think it comes down to the eyes. I think if you look at the eyes, right, as we try to zoom in a little bit more, but as you look into the eyes, it almost looks like they're one of them is a little oversized as opposed to the other. Something's going on. Could be lighting, um, but it's just something bizarre. They gave him a more stoic expression. Look, the detail work is fine. It just doesn't look like Paul Rudd. I think they missed on the likeness here. Now, the other interesting thing here is they're not just teasing the updates to the sculpt, they're also teasing updates to the suit. And this is where I think this figure kind of shines because it's a very it's a very nice look. The red and black is a great color combination. And I know that's more Marvel, right, MCU than Hot Toys, but they're recreating it well here, right? I like the panelized armor on the shoulders, right? Just again, very sleek, and even the helmet with kind of the carbon fiber portions at the top, it looks pretty nice with the light up features, right? This is a figure that I have not pre-ordered, and it's just because there's a lot else, and I'm taking a gamble, and I think I'm right on this one that this one isn't going to sell out anytime soon. I know it's sold out on Sideshow or it's on wait list, but I have a feeling I'll be able to get it from another retailer at or below cost, just because again of the reception to the movie. So, not a figure that I'm passing on, but a figure that I'm going to try to kind of play the market a little bit and see how it turns out. Now, look, I appreciate that we're getting updated head sculpts. Again, detail wise, looks great, right? The hairline looks great. This reminds me to a degree of the Athena from Eternals, which is a great sculpt, but it just didn't look like Angelina Jolie to me. This one, you can kind of see a passing resemblance to Paul Rudd, but at the same time, it comes down to the eyes, and there's just something wrong, right? This eye is smaller than this one. They're just mismatched, and I don't think that's a function of the lighting. I think it's really like part of the sculpt, and I don't know. I would have almost preferred that they did a battle damage version from his final fight with Kang, and just had him up bloodied up, maybe with a bruised eye. That would have been maybe a way to go. Look, they ended up updating it. This is a figure though that I think if I get or when I get it, I'm going to be inclined to showcase this with the sculpt with the helmet. I just don't know that this is going to be. It's not horrible as a sculpt goes, but it is horrible, I think, as far as likeness goes. I could be being extremely difficult or extremely tough on Hot Toys, but I just feel that this is a missed mark on them. Which is, listen, nobody can be perfect, right? And to their credit, Hot Toys has been kind of knocking the sculpts out of the park. So maybe they were due for a dud at this point. But look, once you look at the suit in the armored version with the helmet on, this looks very sleek. The red and black is always a great combination, and I think it does stand apart a little bit from the previous suits that were a little bit more heavy towards the silver. When it comes to the sculpt, I do think that at this point in time, the best sculpt we've gotten from Ant-Man is from that original movie. And granted, that wasn't a full sculpt, right? It was the helmeted sculpt that we got, and then you could kind of remove the mask from the lower portion and the upper, put it on the top of the helmet. But I still think that's probably the best Paul Rudd sculpt we've gotten to date. And that figure's older, but I still think it's an amazing figure. So that's why I also haven't been in a rush to upgrade anything, because to me that one was really a figure that Hot Toys knocked out of the park from the get-go. I am due for another Ant-Man. This is probably going to be it. Again, I like the suit and the colors on the suit and the pattern, right? It's simple, right? You're not going to get much with this figure. But I do like the overall look, and then I think it is a nice upgraded Ant-Man. Just unfortunate that I think they missed the mark on the Paul Rudd. There's just something there that they weren't able to hit. So, look, figured we'd get that one out of the way ASAP. But then now let's get into other things, because Hot Toys has continued to basically drop stuff. So let's go into drops. And before we do that, the reason I went over the Ant-Man first is because when we usually see those updated head sculpts and those updated head sculpt pictures or product modification photographs, it usually means that they're about to drop the figure. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get blogger pictures. Actually, let me check really quickly while we're on. I would not be surprised if we get blogger pictures either tonight or by tomorrow, basically showcasing the, yeah, it doesn't look like they had anything up just yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's an imminent drop that's incoming, right? So just be prepared. That figure is coming our way. Now, as far as drops and releases, Hot Toys gave us a bunch this week. So first of all, from the animated Spider Verse movie, I forget. I think this is Across the Spider Verse. We're getting Spider Man 2099. Now, look, this is a very animated version, right? It's. I'm not going to fault Hot Toys for this, for any issues with the design, right? Because I think they're replicating what they saw on screen, which was an animated exaggerated um, 2099 figure, right? Played also by Oscar Isaac. And there's a theme to this week. It seems like it's Oscar Isaac, and we'll get into the Moon Knight releases later, but or announcements later. But yeah, this was played by or voiced by Oscar Isaac, right? And I think they even based the sculpt on him. Look, this figure when it came out was also controversial because Hot Toys at that point had gone with a full plastic body with fully exposed joints. I did think it was kind of ridiculous. I don't mind exposed joints, right? I think you could see Jake Sully there. He's got exposed joints. A lot of figures have exposed joints, but the way that they did this, and also the fact that it was that blue and red just suit, the joints were very visible, and it just felt very toyish, which is not what we look at when we look at the Hot Toys at this price point too, right? I don't expect these figures to look like that. I do expect them to look animated based on the movie, but I did think the exposed joints were a bit of an issue. Now, look, this does have that the ghosted in details on the suit, but it's very simple in terms of what you're getting. Right, there is some. It looks like there are some patterns on the red as well, some raised patterns. So very cool looking in terms of that. Sculpt is that animated look we got from the movie. This cape, it still looks very toyish to me, right? And even the gauntlet and the forearm kind of blades, it's not realistic, but I don't think it was meant to be realistic, right? So I think if you're a fan of this movie, and in particular, um, I think if you're a fan of the story, this version of Spider-Man is very much important to the story that we're getting. Now, I think this is the luminous effect, right? They're even calling it out there. That looks cool, but how often are you going to actually have that on? I think more often than not, you're going to have it looking like this, where you're going to be able to see that those patterns kind of ghosted in. But it does look cool with the light effects on. Although, again, that's from a display perspective. How are you going to really get that to show unless you put a black light in your display at that point? Look, very simple figure, very simple, very sleek looking. Um, Again, right, there's not much to it. It's a Spider-Man figure. I think this is going to appeal very much to people that are fans of the movie. So, um, not saying that I can fault a lot here because I think it's a good replica, and I do like these kind of laser webs that he has that do add a little bit of a detail. Right, again, you're seeing that exaggerated physique, which makes sense because it's an animated figure. Seems to pose well. I like the gauntlet that he has, or the control pad on the wrist. Um, that's about it, right? It seems to pose well. For me, this was an easy pass. Not because I didn't like the movie. I love the movie. I thought it was a great Spider-Man story, but more because where does this fit into the display, right? Where does this fit into my MCU collection? I think it's very clear from spoiler alert if you haven't watched it, but from the movie that this is linked to the MCU, right? With the multiverse, everything is linked to the MCU. They even show scenes from Tobey Maguire. I think they did show a scene from Tom Holland's Spider-Man, right? We saw that when they were going through all the different Spider-Man universes. So we know that this is technically canon, which is kind of, if anything, that would be my kind of foot in the doors to say I'm absolutely getting this because it's part of the MCU, but it's that animated look that I just feel won't really translate well into the collection, right? And that's my own personal kind of feeling, right? When I look at it, I just feel like it's gonna be, it's just not gonna meld well into that. So I'm more inclined to wait for a realistic looking version, or with the comic versions that Hot Toys is doing now, I'd love a more comic book accurate 2099, especially since Hot Toys is definitely taking that extra step to make sure that those do fit in with the MCU proper figures. So I do like that approach that Hot Toys is taking. So again, nothing wrong with this figure. I do kind of dislike this, right? The diorama background they gave you, this is clearly just cardboard cutouts that are put in. I don't know if that was their attempt to try to get an animated look out of it. It just feels cheap. I don't know that I would use those. But other than that, look, the figure's fine. I do think, and it's just me, I do think that Hot Toys replacing the full plastic body, which is probably still underneath, right, with this rubberized suit was the right call. I think it looks much more. Um, I'm not going to say higher end figure because it still does look a little bit cheap. I just don't think that that's Hot Toys' fault, right? I think that's the design of this particular character. So they're emulating that. So I don't think that's their fault, but I definitely think it looks better than having all those exposed joints. So that was one release we got this week. Now, let's see. Let's go back. The other release we got this week for you Back to the Future fans, which I love Back to the Future. I think Back to the Future, one of the best movies of my childhood growing up, and one that I go back and revisit, and it still holds up well, right? That especially that first one. Back to the Future 2 is a fun movie, especially with starting to mess with the timelines, and obviously the flying DeLorean is something that I think made a big impression to all of us, and even the end scenes of that original Back to the Future, when Doc Brown comes in, right, and says, "In the future, you don't need roads," and you see the DeLorean take off and just shoot off into the sky, right? What a cliffhanger! That was a great moment. I remember watching that first movie. So one continues to be my favorite. Two is a great movie. I like three. I definitely like part three. Um, I think it was interesting to go back right to Hill Valley and set everything up in that Western motif. Um, it's just not my favorite of the three. It's not to say it's not a good movie. It's a great conclusion to the movie series. But definitely the weakest of the three, at least in my opinion. Has some great moments, right? And it's important if you're going to conclude that series, especially since each movie essentially ends in a cliffhanger. But look, so we're getting something that I think a lot of us didn't expect at the time, and then Hot Toys announced it, which was the Back to the Future 3 DeLorean. Has a couple of different components. Key component is this device that gets strapped to the hood, right? And then you've got the tires, right? These are the tires that Doc Brown puts on back in the I forget the date that the original takes place in, right? But in the past, to kind of get him back to the Wild West. So it's kind of cool that you're seeing that, right, with the nice sleek um, red wheels with the silver caps as well. I don't know, like off the top of my head, what other differences. This looks very similar to the Mark II DeLorean, right? Other than the strapped on the strapped controls that are connected here, which looks intricate, right? This looks beautiful. I'm trying to see if there's a close up of that, but you've got all these clear cylinders on board with all the wiring. This looks great, and this shot looks amazing too. If you do have these two figures, this is a great way to display this, right? Potentially. Um, Although you do have the hoverboard too, and you can definitely do something from the end of the movie. Now, the other thing I like, and I'm trying to get to it, is you can swap out the wheels. You can't swap out the wheels to create the train look from the very finale, the from the final moments of the movie. I think that's pretty cool. And if I were to get this, I think this is where I kind of gravitate towards because it's different, right? The wheels with the red, with the red caps and everything, or the red wheels, those are fine. They look great, but this is really the highlight moment of the DeLorean in Part Three, as far as I'm concerned. Right, having it being pushed by the train, the locomotive, and just pushed to that ravine while it's on the tracks. I thought that was the big story moment for this vehicle. So very cool. Now you don't get any tracks, just as an FYI. You do get the wheels, and this is a great way to cap off the series. Now, for me, this was an easy pass again. It looks beautiful. It looks stunning. I like the fact that Hot Toys gave us all three versions. Um, for me, I missed the first one. I got the second one, which I did have a break in mind, but ended up getting a discount from Sideshow. So I ended up getting it for very cheap, and I repaired it on my own, which took a little time, but I was fine with that. And then three, again, being my least favorite movie, it was also one that I wasn't as inclined to jump on. And one of the big things is these vehicles are big, right? The DeLorean itself is probably one of the smaller vehicles that you'll get, but it still takes up a lot of space. And having one DeLorean already, right, the hover converted one, and then a couple of other vehicles, it starts taking up valuable real estate. So the question becomes, do you need all three DeLoreans? And for me, the answer was, as much as I like the movies, one for the moment is enough. That part two one is enough. And the only reason I'm also hesitant to get this is there is a rumor that Blitzway may be tackling the DeLorean, and I'm sure that's going to be expensive if they do it. Um, but the hope would be that that would be from part one, and I'd be able to jump back and get a part one DeLorean, which is that iconic vehicle to me, right, with the hook at the back. So I'll wait for that one. But it's not to say this one isn't beautiful, right? And if you are a hardcore um, Back to the Future fan, like I know many of you are, um, and you have the space, it'll be awesome to have all three versions on display, right? One in the standard, that classic iconic look, the other in the hover converted mode, and this one, right? Even this, right? The fact that you're getting the dial, the pressure dials, that's a great detail touch from Hot Toys right there. So I appreciate that they went a little above and beyond to give us those details. So if you're getting the and here's the control. Look at all these cylinders and all these wires, right? The copper casing. Hot Toys did a great job with this, right? This is I don't know if it's removable, right? Because this is how you do access your battery compartment and your on-off switch. So I don't know if it's removable or not, but they put a lot of effort into this, and this is what makes it stand out, right? The the tires, right? Especially the train track tires. So look, it's a great release from Hot Toys. I think it's early too. It's not a cheap release. So just goes to show you, right? Another release that Hot Toys has there for us. So they're just trying to clear the books at this point for the end of the year. So hope whoever's getting this is ready for it. For me, another pass. Just um, it's space constraints are really what's coming in, but pretty cool looking piece. Now let's see one other release this week. So again, right, three releases in a week. So that's a lot. And this was another one that was early, and this is the Star Killer figure from. I think this is a skin that you get in the Force Unleashed 2 after finishing the game. Now, I played the first one, right? I did not play the second one. And Star Wars, you guys know at this point, um, I'm not going to spend too much time on Star Wars just because I don't know all the particulars, especially with how deep Hot Toys is going into the line now, going into the Clone Wars, right? I never watched the Clone Wars, so they're characters that the most I know of them is from small appearances in the prequel series or otherwise, right? But none of the animated shows. So I'll tell you it looks cool, but I'm not going to be able to give you a lot of information. Now here, it's just this continuing trend, right? Hot Toys is releasing this guy early. He looks cool. This is supposed to be actually a nylon suit, so for those of you concerned about long-term deterioration, doesn't look like that's going to be a serious concern. Now look, the helmet looks great with the detailing on it. This looks like the mouthpiece for almost like Bush Leia. Um, I do like the fact that he dual wields, right? But that's something that the character does in the video game as well. That I do remember. The claws look funky, right? Because he's got a closed fist and they don't fully close with him, so they're almost just hanging here. That's just my thought, right? That looks a little bizarre. But look, he has presence. The only thing for me is right now it's Revan just got released and this guy just got released. And if I had to have my choice, I think Revan would be the first pickup because Revan just has a shelf presence to him, right? And um, I think this version of Star Killer, Look, he's cool. I'm not going to deny, especially holding all those different lightsaber hilts, right, or having all these from his vanquished enemies on his belt. That's from a storytelling perspective, that's something very interesting to see, right? The armored elements on the back, on the spine. Um, but other than that, it's a pretty straightforward release, right? Armored pieces. Obviously, the suit is where he stands out, right? The skirt is tattered at the bottom, which is great. I do like the nylon bits. The claws again, just something funky about those. But he does look like he has good shelf presence as well. Just not as good to me as Revan. And I'd love to see them, instead of doing the skin version of the character, doing an unmasked version. That's more in line with what we saw in the game, because that would be something that I'd be much more inclined to get, especially with everything that's getting released and artisan line that's getting dropped from us, right? Exclusives. Uh, we're in a time period where Hot Toys is giving us a lot. And if you are one of these collectors that is able to pick up everything, God bless. I mean, that is kudos to you, because it's a huge financial commitment, a huge space allocation that you're going to need for all those that I'm just not able to do. And again, Star Wars not being my forte, it definitely goes to the bottom of the list. I'm still picking up some Star Wars figures, but I have found myself, and we're going to talk about this with one of the announcements from this week. I have found myself gravitating much more towards the Sith characters, so to speak. Um, Visually, I just think they're more interesting, right? From for this guy, even with the funky claws, much more interesting. Revan, who's not exactly a Sith, I know he teeters between the light side and the dark side of the Force, but again, interesting, visually appealing character, right? The Inquisitor and all those. Um, Darth Vader, obviously. So it's definitely appealing in that sense to get kind of these lightsaber characters, and I do like the look of the blades. The This one is not my favorite of the recent releases, but I know it has a popularity to it. So just an exciting release in the sense that Hot Toys is just knocking them out, right? One after the other, after the other, after the other. And look, that Ant-Man tease that we just got with the sculpt, they're dropping that this week. I would be surprised if we don't get the announcement pictures this week, right? So look, for you Star Wars fans, this one is coming your way soon too. Although Sideshow has a major delay, and let's just as an aside, I ordered the Death Trooper, right, and it's not even coming to me, right? I ordered it for my friend Fabs, um, but it hasn't shipped, and that was paid for over 2 weeks ago at this point, or 2 weeks ago exactly to the date. So Sideshow's experiencing major delays, right? I just had everything delayed too, like the John Wick was delayed, the Nebula got delayed, so they're experiencing some serious, issues right now. Um, Not sure why that is, but look, this looks cool too. Not for me at this point in time. I think this was going to be a pass. If Hot Toys were to revisit the line with an unmasked version of it, of the character, then I would. I think that would be much more tempting. But look, 3 releases at this point from Hot Toys for this week. So now, with the releases out of the way, let's go into. Actually, no, there's one more release, so 4 releases. Um, and this one, I can't believe I missed this one, just because this is right up my wheelhouse. So we're getting the new version of Nebula with the team suit. This one's coming up, and I just mentioned she got delayed for me, but as soon as I saw the team suits, I wanted to have all of them. I like the fact that she's a little different with this flight pack, and that the mechanical arm can switch between this cannon piece and this sword element. Uh, Look, I saw the team suit with the Star Lord. It's incredible, right? And the team suit, the reduced one with the rocket, it's really nice. So um, I know it's not the classic look of these characters, but it's a different way of putting them together. And I do think that visually I loved it in the movie, and I do like having these in figure form. And for Nebula, having the version from Infinity War or from Endgame, right, this is a great opportunity to have something different. So I love this jetpack. I think she never wears this jetpack with this suit in the movie. So this is a little bit of a kind of mixing and matching. But I think this looks cool, and it gives her a little something extra. And I think the mechanical arm with the sword with this kind of heated blade Very, very interesting. The cannon's cool too. Just I like that sword arm, right? And there's just these suits are classy. These team suits are really, really nice looking, and I like the look of this jetpack with just the very thin kind of arms, right, with the yellow. Very cool, very cool. The mechanical things. It's not going to take up a lot of space or real estate in a collection display. That's another thing that's appealing. Then you also get this kind of transforming arm. Um, Look, this is a great figure, but again, it's going to appeal to hardcore MCU fans at this point, or fans of the movie, which I thought the movie was really good. I'm trying to get to the. I thought I saw a picture of everybody together, so I now am just waiting for her. Right, I've got Groot, I've got Star Lord, I've got Rocket and Cosmo. This looks great, right? To me, this looks fantastic. Star Lord, great release, easily their best Star Lord to date from a sculpt perspective. Rocket, great to have that different look. Groot is amazing. That figure is amazing. The only thing is, while this looks great, for me, I think there's no way I can't display him with the multiple arms spread out with all the blasters, because that was one of those memorable scenes from the movie and moments from the movie. So I'll have to figure out how to pose these figures around him in that display. But it's a great looking collection, and the only thing, and I mentioned this previously, the only regret I have is that we still haven't seen the Mantis and the Drax in the team suit. It was teased that Hot Toys did that teaser that showed everybody in the team suit or the silhouettes of them. So they tease them, knowing Hot Toys, they don't always follow through. There may be licensing issues. There may be something. There may be just they may not expect those figures to sell. Although I think if they put a Drax up for sale, it's going to sell. Now, the one thing I will tell you, with what we're going to discuss, the other Marvel figures we're going to discuss shortly, and with a lot of the 2.0s that they're doing, the Captain America 2.0, the Winter Soldier that's incoming, we're seeing Hot Toys go back and do different versions. So could they do a Drax from Guardians 1, given that they already did it, and just update it? Maybe. Right? I wouldn't put anything out of the realm of possibility. Even that DeLorean Mark III, right? That got showcased in one of the shows in Japan, I believe, years ago. And not a peep from Hot Toys. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we got the announcement and it was up for pre order. So you can never count Hot Toys out. And just because something's not getting made at this point in time doesn't mean we're not going to get the release. So I still have hope that eventually we might get those figures. But if we don't, this is a great looking release. And, hopefully, I also have that third party Adam Warlock, which will be a great companion. It'd be great if somebody did the High Evolutionary. Um, he was a terrible villain, and terrible in the way that he in what he did, right? So that would be a great addition to go along with these. But if we don't, this is a great way to cap the line off. Part of me would be annoyed not to get the complete line or the complete team, but it still looks good visually, and I think it's going to look great in the collection. So that's exciting. That one's coming home at some point. Although at this point in time, it looks like that's going to be in 2026. All right, so let's jump into let's jump into the first announcement. Let's start with Mr. Knight. We saw this teased in I think it's the Tokyo Comic Con, right? So Hot Toys didn't waste any time, right? They teased him and they launched him. So immediately I could tell you the sculpt looks phenomenal, right? This looks like Oscar Isaac. The hair, the sculpted hair looks great too, right? You've got some little strands coming out. The suit, the tailoring, all that looks great, right? The hands. I don't know that there's much to complain here. Now, I do like this pose with the two sticks in one hand, but this isn't magnetic, right? So this is probably using some kind of a tack here to do that. But there's definitely presence to him, and I do like the Mr. Mask, oh sorry, the Mr. Knight mask. But I think the highlight of this figure, without a doubt, is the unmasked, um, Oscar Isaac sculpt. Now, the reason I'm starting with this one is it's interesting because So Toys released probably the best version. They're not the only version of Mr. Knight that we've gotten, but I think they released the first best version to date. I'm not looking to get rid of that one, right? The way their suit is done is it's almost like a rubberized textured element on top, to create kind of this pattern. Whereas here, it almost looks like Hot Toys just got sourced a bit of fabric to actually create that look, which is pretty phenomenal. Um, what they're not showing you here in any of these pictures is the jacket removed, just with him with the underlying vest and then the undershirt with the sleeves rolled up. And the reason I bring that up is because the Social Toys one includes an alternate shirt specifically for that look. So already in my mind, I'm already starting to think, because there's no way I'm passionate on this, right? Look at the fabric choice on this, the detailing on the suit, the tie knot, the detailing on the tie as well. Um, the Just everything, right, from the buttons. I think this is going to be the superior piece, right? Even though it's simple and they're going to be very similar, I do think Hot Toys is still gonna beat out Social, and I think it's gonna be similar to what we saw with the um, classic Loki, where the Social Toys one is fantastic, but I think the Hot Toys one is just a little bit better, which is what we would expect from a Hot Toys figure, right? But the sculpt is top notch. I think the sculpt is without a doubt better than the Social Toys one. I like the Social Toys one, but I remember having it in hand. There's just something. The likeness is there, but it feels a little like the paint-apps are a little lacking, and it comes down to the eyes, right? The eyes just aren't as refined as what Hot Toys is giving us these days because these look realistic. I know they're not glass, right? That's what other studios like J&D are doing, or I don't think InArt is doing that, but I know J&D is kind of focused on doing these glass eyes. Hot Toys isn't doing that, I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it comes down to the sculpt. This looks fantastic. So for me, definitely an order. As a Marvel fan, how can I not order? And the Social Toys isn't going to get um, dropped, right, or isn't going to get sold. I'm going to use him now to create that look with the rolled up sleeves because it gives me a great alternate. The other thing too is, if you look, let me zoom in a little bit on this guy. If you look at the mask sculpt, right, the eyes look like they're almost squinting, which does give him a bit of an interesting look. I think the mask is fine, right? The mask is simple. Um, it's not complex at all, right? It's not like the full Moon Knight mask sculpt. Um, but I do like the fact that the Social Toys one has different eyes. So for me, it's going to be the Social Toys with the rolled up sleeves with the mask sculpt, and then the Hot Toys version is going to easily be this sculpt on the body, right, with the full suit on. There's just no way I'm going to keep this sculpt in the box, especially having. That's the good thing about having that Social Toys figure. It gives you the option of having an alternate look. So this was one that I think was surprising when we saw it in the show, right? Um, and I will tell you, I was surprised at how quickly Hot Toys ended up putting him up for pre-order, because sometimes you see something at a show and it takes a little bit for it to go up and launch. So this one launched. I wouldn't be surprised if what's the character from Alien, Romulus, Rain. That's the other one that kind of got revealed in the show. She's already up for RSVP on Sideshow site. I wouldn't be surprised if she goes up either this week or next week or shortly, because just like Mr. Knight, that one seems like when they're ready to launch. So that's what caught me by surprise, how quickly they turned this around. Simple figure, right? Up for pre-order, 250, I think, or 255 on Sideshow. Look, not cheap, right? And I think it could probably be cheaper, but that's the new standard for Hot Toys. And I think it's on the lower side, which makes sense. Even though you're getting two sculpts, it's a very simple figure. You're paying for the suit, right? You're paying for the two sculpts. But beyond that, light on the accessories too, right? If we go back, I mean, what are you getting? You're getting the sticks, you're getting two heads, right? You get the scarab and a couple of alternate hands. So it's not much, right? But the sculpt looks phenomenal. So this is where the big surprise came in, because that one launched and it was like, oh, coming out pretty quick, right? I was surprised, pleasantly surprised, but at the same time, it was expected. We saw it on the show, and then that same night, Hot Toys dropped this beauty on us, and let me get it. An artisan edition Moon Knight. Who would have expected that? I wasn't expecting that, right? And I don't think anybody in the community called us, right? Um, I think we were expecting a lot of other figures that Hot Toys is teasing, but this one, an artisan, it's not really a 2.0, and we'll get into that, but an artisan Moon Knight came out of nowhere. And then, especially right on the tail, literally or minutes after launching the Mister Knight, right? It was a little surprising that Hot Toys turned around and that same night they gave us, well, here's your second figure, which is a new version of Moon Knight, and obviously Artisan at the lead at that. So look, it looks phenomenal. I own that original Moon Knight. That original Moon Knight. Um, I don't know. I think it was a. Did I have it as figure of the year last year? I think did it come out last year, or was it this year? I'll have to check a little bit. It's just slipping my mind right now. But this that figure was fantastic. That figure is awesome. If you still get the chance to own it, um, yeah, yeah, I would totally recommend it, especially if it goes down in price because that one was something that a lot of people were looking for. But if you I think this is the same exact figure in that sense. There are some variations that we'll get into, but obviously, if you can't get that figure super cheap, this is a great option. Now, there is no sculpted version, and that makes sense because the sculpted version is essentially coming with Mister Knight, and then we already got a previous version of the suit, so it doesn't make sense for Hot Toys to do both. But look, this posability on this was great. That cape, phenomenal, right? One of the best capes Hot Toys has done. And in the show, and I think even in the movie, sorry, in the comic series, right, the cape kind of has a mind of its own. And I think Hot Toys gave you something that was very flowing, that very much captures that feel. Now, you are still getting a mask sculpt. This was awesome, right? I love this in the first one, right? But if you're going to get an artisan figure and pay the amount of money that you're going to be paying for an artisan, how can you not display him with this sculpt, right? And look, I just said that the sculpted version that comes with Mr. Knight is fantastic, and it's an amazing sculpt, easily one of Hot Toys' best. This, I think, is the same exact sculpt, just with the rooted hair. How how can you keep this in the box, right? That's the thing. So for me, the benefit again of having that previous version is there's only one way of displaying him with the mask. Here, there's no way I'm putting this in a box, right, or keeping that. Now this already went up for order on Friday. It was the queue system. I was lucky enough. I had like a very low number, but I did like three different screens, three different things, and then I picked the one that gave me the lowest. So um, no issue getting it. I just couldn't pass on it. Like looking at some of these pictures, and this is how far Hot Toys has come. Some of these pictures now, especially with the rooted hair, are starting to pass for posters or stills from the movie. Like looking at this picture that we have here on the screen. I mean, it's just insane. The level of detail that Hot Toys was able to get into this, and with the rooted hair, which looks fantastic, by the way. Um, this looks like it could be a picture taken, like a promotional shot for the show. I mean, that's how good it is. And that's what really Hot Toys is doing with the artisan. And look, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. I'm not going to stop here and tell you it's not, right? But Hot Toys saw the writing on the wall, right? InArt was charging a ton of money for their figures, and Hot Toys said, "Well, why not? We can do it better, right?" I do think this was something that they had in the planning stages, at least this artisan line. I think they probably knew that the market was heading in that direction. But look, this was a figure that I didn't expect. Now, the other thing they did, and I'm trying to find the picture where they show that. So here, sculpted costume design with weathering effects, because that's the big thing, right? Obviously, what sets this apart is you're getting the rooted sculpt, right? Then we already got these daggers. We already got the mask sculpt, right? And the suit is identical. They're basically telling you that here, but it's got a lot more weathering. So they had to throw people a bone, especially for people that weren't fortunate enough to pick up the first version. This is a great option, right? And for people that did have the version, Hot Toys was smart because they had to give you something that made this appealing beyond the skull, the rooted hair, right? I mean, the rooted hair is a selling point in itself, but they had to create something that gives you just a different feel. And by doing this extremely weathered look, which you can kind of tell, right? It's a little bit more grayish with scuffs throughout, especially on that the chest armor elements, right? That's what made it appealing. But that's kind of the modification that Hot Toys did. It's not a new body, so it's not a 2.0, right? I can tell you that. I can tell you this is pretty much the exact same figure. The base figure is going to be identical to what we got before. There's no reason for Hot Toys to change it at this point. So what are you getting? You're getting weathering and you're getting the artisan sculpt, right? That's what the artisan line ends up being. And then the original Moon Knight does have a couple of extra accessories, right? One of them is the diorama base with that Moon Knight, the crescent moon. Um, that's not necessary, right? It's a cool looking feature to have with the diorama, but not critical by any means. But I think it also included like the um oh my god, I'm forgetting the thing, but it's almost like the capsule that they find in the final temple. So there are slight variations too in terms of accessories, if you're interested, right? But look, you're getting this for the sculpt, and this is easily one of the best sculpts Hot Toys has done. I mean, when I saw this launch, I remember having to do a double take. That's how good I think it is, right? You guys might think I'm wrong, but this looks phenomenal. So, Hot Toys, it's just unexpected at this point, right? Um, we're gonna get into the one of the teases they had, which that one was not that was something we were all expecting at this point, especially with the launch of the Captain America stealth suit or strike suit 2.0. We were expecting a new Winter Soldier. But instead of that being the next one, Hot Toys dropped Moon Knight. So at this point, anything is up for grabs. Like I would not be surprised if we start getting figures from all these movies, right? Even now, seeing Winter Soldier, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I could see a couple of those figures coming out, especially in that artisan look. So look, um, is this a cash grab? Probably, right? I'm sure Hot Toys saw how good this Moon Knight figure did, and especially how it's doing in the secondary market. But they did enough upgrades here that for me, this was a must get. Not going to get rid of my original because I want the mask look, so that one can remain as it was. And this one, this is the way to display it. I think this is the way for me to display it. So very exciting to have those Hot Toys versions of these characters. Now, what else did they launch? Let's see. Um, let's go into very quickly Plo Koon um, from Star Wars. I think is this from Phantom Menace or is this just Star Wars? Um, look, I know we saw him in Revenge of the Sith, and obviously he dies in a during Order 66, and I think he's flying a ship that gets destroyed by a couple of clone troopers. So, look, I'm happy for you Star Wars fans that are continuing to get this line. Hot Toys is going deep, right? They've already teased. I think it's Sassy Tin. So they're teasing more Jedi figures. Look, they give me two alternate looks as well, and this is where my lack of familiarity with Clone Wars is gonna kind of hurt me. Like it looks cool with these gauntlets, these forearm pieces. I do like the look of this. It's a little more sleek, a little more combat ready, as opposed to the standard. What is it? The cloak, which is pretty heavy. This is what's interesting, right? This figure is obviously sold from based on the sculpt and the hands, right? It's going to stand apart. The sculpt looks great, right? With the breathing apparatus, right? With the eyepieces, and then the intricacy of the detail on this alien sculpt, right? That's pretty phenomenal. I'm not going to sit here and tell you this isn't great, right? The Hot Toys knocked it out of the park. You even have these patterns on the metal on the mask, right? And this grill pattern. This is awesome, right? Where this figure right loses me a little bit, and you can also see Kit Fisto in the background, which is another great sculpt. Is it's and maybe this is as a non-Star Wars, or I like Star Wars, but as someone who's not as deeply entrenched into the mythology and into all these characters, I tend to gravitate more towards the Sith characters, as I mentioned earlier, or even those characters operating in a morally ambiguous gray zone, right? Like Balin Skull, for example. There's just a bigger visual appeal to those guys, right? One of the things I liked about Obi-Wan from the Obi-Wan show is, even though he's still in grays, right? He looked interesting, and Ahsoka the White, which is coming up soon, right? That white suit looks awesome, right? So there's a visual flair to her there. Now, overall, the Jedi that we were getting, right? Plo Koon, Kit Fisto, Sassy Tin. One of the things that kind of holds me back too from jumping into those characters, as good as they look, is they look a little similar, right? And yes, they're part of the Jedi Order, but it's that same brown cloak with the same kind of undersuit and tunic, right? The Sith have a lot more independence, so visually they just stand apart. And this is just the way I'm collecting Star Wars, by the way. I know this is something that's going to appeal to a bunch of you, and I'm glad for you guys. I feel happy that Hot Toys is going as deep as they are into these lines, because it's great, right? As someone that likes them to go deep into Marvel lines, I appreciate that they're doing this for other collections as well. So huge fan of that for you guys. And then you've got a couple of other troopers that are being teased that look great, right? These are just not for me, but I can admire the artistry here, right? And with Star Wars, I'm just being much more selective. And honestly, the collection is definitely veering much more towards the dark side of the Force. I ordered Darth Maul. I have to order a Savage. Just visually, those figures look different. Balin is a great looking figure, very classy. And even though he's simple in terms of, and you'll see that when my review goes up this week, he's a much simpler figure. There's still just something visually appealing there that I don't necessarily connect with these figures. So if you have a connection to these guys, it's a fantastic pickup. But with so many releases coming out, so many artisan like that, artisan Moon Knight, right? And on top of that, we had the Iron Patriot that just came out from Marvel, where I'm definitely more heavily invested. These are the ones that are going to are going to end up being cut, just because they had a few seconds of screen time, and I don't have the attachment to them that, say, someone who watched the Clone Wars probably did, because it looks like this character played much more of a role in that show. So great release. And look, Hot Toys again, right? They didn't just drop Mr. Knight and Moon Knight, they dropped Mr. Knight, Artisan Moon Knight, and then a Plo Koon for Star Wars fans. So that's insanity. There's 3 pre-orders in 1 week. And that's on the tails of another couple of pre-orders last week, and the Iron Patriot finally going up for sale on Sideshow, which was another Q nightmare, right, for a lot of us. I was actually able to get one, so I'm not complaining. But Hot Toys they're coming for our wallets at this point. So just be prepared, because Hot Toys is king at this point. Even with that substandard Ant-Man sculpt. Now, I think that does it for announcements. So let's get really quickly into the tease that they had, which this is one, like I mentioned earlier, I think we all saw coming. We all saw this one coming. It's the Winter Soldier 2.0. That figure is due for an upgrade. I have the original, and the original still holds up. It's great. Came with a ton of accessories, a ton of weaponry, right? This look for Bucky, the Winter Soldier version, especially with the black eyeshadow and all that, um, probably the most badass look for this character in the MCU throughout. Right, he's had great moments in subsequent movies, right? Civil War, in the Avengers movies. I liked him in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Right, he's going to reappear in Thunderbolts. There's a lot to like about this character. I just think that that first movie, right, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, was his best uh, overall look for this, right? Um, that's really where it stands out. So, look, we knew this was coming. We were hoping for it, especially when Hot Toys launched the Artisan line. So I think a lot of people were requesting this figure. And then when we saw Hot Toys drop like I said, the Strike Suit 2.0 Captain America suit, right? we knew at that point that this was coming. So this should come as no surprise. Contrary, as opposed to that Moon Knight artisan, right? This is something we were expecting. So what am I expecting? Look, the one of the biggest issues with that original figure is the pleather is flaking, and mine, one of the arms is flaking a little bit. But I did have him posed up in a way with the the rifle kind of, you know, I think he either had it at a 90-degree angle, but I definitely put stress on the material, which is what you want to do with these figures, right? They're six scale posable figures, so why would you not do that? But as a result, I remember even though I kept them in that pose for years, once I brought them down, you could start seeing some of the peeling. So it's due for an upgrade. Now, is this going to be artisan? I know, um, this isn't being teased as artisan, but I think this has to be an artisan. I don't see them launching this as anything else. I can imagine them doing two versions. I can imagine this being a DX where we get an artisan version and then a standard version with the sculpted hair. I could see that being a possibility. But we'll see, right? This is coming soon. Will it be this week? Possibly, or are they going to save this for a nice Christmas surprise? That could be another thing. But look, I'm expecting definitely the sculpt. Um, the Bucky sculpt is another one that I feel like Hot Toys has come close to, but has never gotten perfect. So I think this is an opportunity for Hot Toys to really knock that Sebastian Shaw, that Bucky Barnes sculpt out of the park. And I do want something that's much improved, right? And then also I hope they actually either use leather or use a different type of material for the vest and the suit, just to avoid any deterioration. As far as accessories, I'm expecting from this movie knives, guns, weapons, right? The plate launcher, that the explosive launcher. So I'm expecting a lot from this one. Um, Look, at one point he even uses a bike. Would they give him that? I That's too much. But I'm very curious to see what this package is going to look like. But this is a figure a lot of us have been asking for. I think what I'm seeing here, very very minor, looks great. But I think this might be real leather. Which, if they do a real leather suit, would be awesome. And then, do I think this is going to be die cast? Not necessarily. Although I do hope maybe it's double jointed. Um, but you can definitely see the hair. This is not sculpted hair. This is rooted hair, which is why I'm leaning towards this being part of the artisan line. But just be on the lookout for this. I wouldn't be surprised if that drops either this week or next week, or at the very least right before Chinese New Year, because I think they're going to want to get this one out and get this one uh, out in order, because everybody's clamoring for this one. So that was exciting. And then let's see, what else do we have? We're almost done. We're almost done. I know I'm keeping you along. Um, yeah. So look, third party. I wanted to talk about this last week, but I didn't get a chance. I forgot. But from Metal Gear Solid 3, right, Snake Eater, I think, you are getting a big boss version of Snake. So you are getting a couple versions, right? This one with the older style camo, right, comes with this looks like an AR style, or maybe an M16 style rifle with extendable stock. It's got optics on the top of the handguard, right? This looks a little bit more traditional. It's got the sniper rifle, knives, radio, pistol, right? All these sorts of accessories. The box is a nice throw in for those of you that have played the game, right? This looks great, right? The scope looks phenomenal, right? The uniform, right, especially with that old school style U.S. kit, right, and all the buckles. I can't really complain about this. I think this looks pretty cool. Um, and if you're a fan of the game, this is a great option too, to have this kind of Snake figure, right? Even the earpiece. It's a military style figure, right? And I think this is an offshoot of Damn Toys, is what I've seemed to recall as well. But weaponry looks great, right? Very very simple for the time frame, but very much in line with what you'd expect from the character. Posability looks fine. I like the holster too. Again, he's got much more of that old school Vietnam era look, but he's not the only version, right? You're also getting this with the tiger print camo. So he does have slightly different accessories. He's got more of that traditional M16, right? That does include a suppressor. That's pretty interesting, right? No optics on this one. He does have a very small, like, Um, this looks like almost an M4, but um, it's a very compact version of the gun with the barrel ammo, and then he's got 3 pistols. This is pretty. It's overkill, but that's pretty impressive. Um, I think the interesting part here, right? Again, looks great. Similar getup, except he's got the eye patch on this one, right? Which is for Big Boss, I think is much more of the traditional look. And then he's got this thing, which looks hokey. Um, I know he uses it in the game, right? This alligator helmet of sorts for disguise. Um, if I were to get this figure, which listen, I'm thinking about it, that's not a look I'm going to go for. This guy looks like a badass. Again, if you're a fan of the video game, yes, this is very much on point with the video game. So look, I get it. If it's great that they're throwing that in there, to me that just becomes silly. Um, yeah, again, right? I know it's accurate, but look, you've got him with this great looking rifle. I want to show him. I want to show this one with the eyepiece and just that sculpt and maybe holding the rifle right. I think that looks cool. And look, having that extra accessory. The only issue I have with that one is that they're charging you for it. So because that's the only negative. Now, it is 2 versions of the figure. Here's where they get me with this, because this is third party, right? It's not licensed. That's why even the spelling, right? What is it? Metal Giant Soldier Snake Boss, um, right? Instead of Metal Gear Solid, they're giving you that, right? Um, it's third party, and it looks good. It looks really good. I think this company, because they're an offshoot of Damn Toys. Damn Toys does phenomenal work. I'm not surprised that this looks as good as it does with the kit, with the uniform, and even the sculpt. Right, looks very solid. What gives me pause is, again, some of these third party companies are starting to get up there in price. So you've got the tiger stripe camo version, and then you got the traditional camo version. Uh, Both are over 200. I think the traditional is 250. This one was actually 270 on Kitchen's site. So these are Hot Toys level prices. Is this a Hot Toys level product? Based on my experience with Dan Toys, I think it probably will be. So there is that selling point, but it's unlicensed, right? It's a third party. So if you're a fan of the game like I am, it's very tempting. But we just went over how many pre-orders did I show you from Hot Toys? I showed you Moon Knight Artisan, which is expensive, Mr. Knight, right? We just saw how many releases. We saw Nebula get released, right? We saw Spider-Man 2099. We saw some others, right? We saw the DeLorean. Even though I'm not getting those, right? I'm being selective. I have to. Um, this figure, while tempting, it's crossing that threshold into just expensive enough that there are other things that I think might be more of a priority. Um, and I already told you, like even Star Wars, right, is getting cut significantly because I'm not a huge fan. A figure like this would probably be something I would get instead of a Jedi, just because I like this property more. But even so, right, we still have I still haven't ordered the Captain America 2.0. There's certain figures I haven't ordered yet that I have to pre-order, and then there's more coming. Right, we still have all those teasers from Deadpool and Wolverine. We know Hot Toys is going to make those. On top of that, potentially Artisan Winter Soldier, which means a queue system, which means pricey. So I got to be on the lookout for that. And not only that, you still have releases, even though things got delayed. Right, Hot Toys is still giving you what 3 or 4 releases in a week. So for those of us that have pre-ordered, a lot of those are things we have to pick up. And look, I'm not saying extend yourself, right? You buy what you're able to, you should be able to buy, and consider your budget. But uh, what I'm trying to say is, where does this fall in the bigger picture? And that's where, right, budgets come in, spreadsheets, anticipation, and a little foresight into what's coming. Because for Marvel, Hot Toys isn't going to stop. At this point, Hot Toys is going to continue not just giving us stuff from new movies, they're going back. So look, with the Winter Soldier, right, with them giving us Cap 2.0, Winter Soldier, we already saw an Artisan Black Widow from Iron Man 2. What's to say they're not going to do another Black Widow from Winter Soldier, right? She had a very unique look with the longer hair. I think that would be a possibility. Um, what other? I'm expecting an Artisan Thor, right? That's going to be a must get. Right, it just lends itself. Which version of Thor are they going to do? There's so many at this point, right? We've gotten a ton of them. I have pretty much all of them. So which version of Thor are they going to do? It's going to be a long-haired version, but that's coming at some point, right? Um, and even a character like Moon Knight, I did not expect them to do a Moon Knight before they did a Thor. So you just don't know what they're going to do, right? I don't. I can safely assume we're not going to get a Captain Marvel artisan, right? Just because that figure they can't even give those away at this point. Um, but what's to say they don't do a Kamala Khan artisan and very limited to try to get people to buy that, right? And that's just That's just Marvel. What about Star Wars? Right? There's a Luke Skywalker. Right? What other character could they give us? Right? Could this be a precursor to a Poe Dameron? I think that's what you Star Wars fans are probably expecting, and I'm not surprised. Right? Um, Andor's coming out. Right? What else are they going to do? I think Hot Toys are just going to hit us with everything. So figures like this, well, very cool and very, very tempting, have to take a back seat just because I think there are going to be a lot of slots. Even when you have a slot available in your budget and you're like, oh, I can fit this guy in there, Hot Toys is going to drop an exclusive that you're going to need more, right, as a collector. So that's where not just proper planning and budgeting comes into play, but just thinking about what the possibilities are coming in. So to wrap things up, we're going to take a look at one last teaser, right? And let me make sure this is muted. Yeah. So J&D Kojin Works is still very much alive. Um, Look, I think they stumbled out of the gate with the Joker. With what they were charging for that, they didn't even like. I remember Inart coming in with $1,000 for the 2 pack, right, or just under. But for us in the States, it was about $1,000. And then J&D, Artisan was about 400 and change. And then J&D came in with their version, and I think it was a single figure, was it, or two figures? I forget the package, but they were asking for like $2,000. We were clearly not the target audience, but I'm also thinking that they're reassessing. And I think this figure is going to tell us if they're reassessing because I think they realized they were too expensive. Now, what did they do subsequent to that, right? Then we got the Bruce Wayne and Batman with the armory, right? Which got kind of, I feel like it got any interest or appeal that people might have had or collectors might have had for that got destroyed when Hot Toys launched their Armory 2.0 with a great version of Batman. And then, they even had the Dark Knight Rises Armory with the pre-posed, arm cross Bruce Wayne. So Hot Toys kind of took the wind out of J&D Kojin Works sales for this one because they came in with a cheaper product that I think people were more expecting. And let's replay this in the background. But also expensive, especially when you realize that the only figure you were getting was the Bruce Wayne. They did give you a Batman figure, but that was basically a power pose. Not even, it was a statue. It was a 6-scale statue. And with all the money you're charging, I think Kojin Works was missing the fact that for those of us that collect in the 6 scale, yeah, sure, we'll pick up the occasional statue, right? But I think being able to pose these figures in whichever way we want, whether it's a museum pose or whether it's a slightly dynamic pose, or whether it's some way or another, is key. And for them to take that away with a pivotal character like Batman, I think that was a misstep. So 2 missteps off the bat, right? And I think at that point we all thought they're done, right? Kojin Works, they swung and missed, right, badly. It was terrible. And then to everybody's surprise, including my own, they continued with going head to head with InArt with the Harry Potter license. And they apparently got a global license because I was able to order the Quidditch version of that figure directly from them, shipped to the States, which I couldn't do with InArt. And then the price point was actually pretty reasonable. I do think the InArt package was better. I do think InArt gave them a lot more, right, with the background, especially if you went all in with the rooted hair. But it was a step in the right direction. And then the one I got was the Quidditch version of Harry Potter, which InArt hasn't even teased at this point. Who knows if they'll do it? So that's why I jumped on it. It wasn't so much that it was D&D Kojin works, right? It was a character I wanted or a version. Now the price for that was pretty much on par with InArt. Now, granted, you're getting less, and this is where Kojin Works is kind of losing you a little bit. They're giving you less and charging the same as InArt, as the InArt Premium, right? And say what you will about InArt, at least you get with the Premium, you get a lot of accessories, whether it means they're paper accessories or not. So that's the one thing. Now, the reason I'm bringing all this up is clearly what we're seeing in the background is Kojin Works is back, right? And they're doing a Selena Kyle. Uh, this is interesting because I read the announcement. I think this might be a 2-pack. So I think they're going to do a Selena Kyle in the Catwoman suit. What I hope they don't do is that Catwoman suit ends up being just like the Batman 2-pack that they did with the Bruce Wayne, where the Bruce Wayne is posable, but the Bat suit wasn't. I hope this isn't a case where the Selena Kyle is posable and then the Catwoman isn't. Because, and then I think I'm curious to see what the cost is, right? Because if this goes back to the $2,000 price, they're crazy. I think that's another misstep. I think the Harry Potter figures they did and the way they priced those were probably a way to try to get back into what the market is expecting. If they price this figure at that high price point, again, right, they're appealing to another audience. Might not be me, especially with what you're getting. Look at what you're seeing on screen, right? This is the Selena Kyle from that scene where she steals the pearls from Bruce Wayne, right? And she pretends to be part of the wait staff for the caterer or part of the catering staff, right? And then she removes the collar and everything. Look, she even comes with the tray with a glass and the tray of food. Um, that's great, right? That's a particular look for her. It's not the most memorable look for Selena Kyle, right? I would I would think the airport look is probably a little bit more Selena Kyle than this. But look, if this is a part of a 2-pack, maybe not the end of the world. But again, it's going to come down to price point. And while I expect this, clearly what you're seeing is that she is posable. If this is a 2-pack with the Batman, with the Catwoman, and the Catwoman is not posable, I think that's going to be a mess. So I think they're going to announce this on, it says December 24th. So they'll do more teases, so we'll get to see a little bit more. But Kojin Works still showing signs of life. They're doing a Catwoman, Selena Kyle. We'll see what the particulars are on this one. And then they're also still teasing, right? Um, Sorry, they're also still teasing that they're doing some more Harry Potter figures. We'll see. We'll see how this goes. Right. I want every company to succeed because I think it gives us options as collectors to buy from them. Now, is this going to be Kojin Works going to show longevity? I don't know. Right. Even in our, while they're teasing a ton of product, they've gone radio silent. So, am I concerned? Not necessarily, but it's interesting, right? And just something to observe. But really, at this point, nobody's competing with Hot Toys. Hot Toys is just dropping releases, announcements, surprises, and even with a miss, because I do think that Ant-Man figure was a miss. They're still showing, you know, one miss out of how many hits, right? Their batting average is insane at this point. So, yeah, they're kind of allowed to miss here and there. If you're a fan of we're waiting for that figure, that's a shame. But Hot Toys is still killing it at this point, right? They deserve criticism when they mess up, and I think that Ant-Man is a mess up for them. But more often than not, you're actually getting really good product from them. So, look, that was it. Sorry I kept you longer, but there was actually more to cover than I thought. Hope you guys have a great week. And look, a couple of reviews dropping. Balin is dropping the Tony Stark suit up edition from Avengers. Finally got a chance to put that guy together. Gorgeous, gorgeous figure. Um, Amazing level of detail. A pain in the ass to put together. Uh, all that detail comes at a cost, right? And it is a little delicate to move around, but once you have it posed up, it's stunning. So be on the lookout for that one as well. And then I think that might be it, right? I did pre-order a couple of other things. Oh wait, one thing. Sorry, I'm gonna keep you. I missed one figure because I did pre-order this guy. Um, by now, if you guys want to sign off, go for it because I know this guy's not going to appeal to everybody. Was this it? Or did I? Oh, here it is. Captain Sulu from Star Trek Five: The Undiscovered Country. Um, this was the last original series movie. So XO6, if you saw my Lieutenant Savick review, great figure. The sculpt isn't the best. It's really good. It's one of the better sculpts that XO6 has done, but it comes down to the eyes. The eyes are just not at the Hot Toys level, but still a likeness there. So now they're giving us Sulu, right? So expect a ton of these because you're getting the command this movie version suit, which is awesome. It's one of the best looking suits with the detailing. So what are you getting here? You're getting a different type of phaser, which is cool, right? And it almost looks like it's got a charging a battery for the port, which a removable one. So that's pretty cool. This is my favorite accessory. So you're getting a saucer and cup with the Excelsior logo on it. Look, if you're not a Star Trek fan, you're gonna look at this and you'll be like, "This is boring," and it might be, but to me, this is very classy, especially with Sulu. Right? I don't know that I necessarily need him with the phaser. I think there's a classiness just with him holding the cup, right, and drinking tea, and the suit looks great too. Like even the com badge, different from the previous version, right? And I like that, right? The detail on these straps, right? You can even see this. If this is going to be very similar to the Savick, right? They're uniforms, but this is pretty awesome. And then he's got the white as opposed to the red for the command crew. Uh, Simple figure. You're paying for this. You're paying for the uniform here more than anything. But um, will there be a Commander Sulu? I don't know. From Wrath of Khan, maybe. But for now, a Captain Sulu, I couldn't pass on this guy, right? And again, I know this is going to look boring to a lot of you, but for me, the Excelsior Cup, that's key. And XO6 is teasing that they're doing another pre-order drop this week. Not sure what it is. Um, yeah, look, I'll admit it, I'm at a point where I'm ordering more Star Trek than I am Star Wars, but that's because I just gravitate towards this series a lot more, right? Not a knock on Star Wars, but I think I was watching this, as a kid. I love Star Wars too. Star Wars is great. It's not to say I don't, but I would rather have this character, and I know that sets me maybe a little apart from a lot of you, um, but I have more of a connection to this type of character than I do to some of the secondary characters from Star Wars. So, very exciting to get this. Um, I'm very curious to see how they're going with the line, and I can't wait to get the movie version or the Wrath of Khan version of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, because those are going to really be awesome. And then once you get these right, then you still have I still have to get Uhura, and then Scotty, right, and then Chekhov. I'm gonna want the command crew. I'm gonna want all of them, and then of course at some point we're gonna get Khan himself, which if you're a fan of these movies, those are key pivotal characters, and he's gonna look great standing next to Krug, right? Commander Krug, the Christopher Lloyd Klingon character as well. So it's exciting, right? That XO6 is going as deep into the line. Now, as far as the sculpt, depending on the lighting, that's the thing that you have to accept with these. These are not going to be Hot Toys quality sculpts. They're very good, and some of them have just knocked them out of the park, right? Like the Pike from Strange New Worlds is incredible. The Spock from Strange New Worlds. Um, so are these going to be more on par with that or more on par with the Voyager or the DS9 line? We'll see. But I think that XO6 waited a while to do these because they definitely wanted to iron out the kinks. So sadly, I think the Voyager line and even some of the earlier figures were more of a way for them to test out strategies and techniques. And now look, now they're applying them, and we're getting really solid figures. So if you're a Star Trek fan, Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country, great conclusion to that original series of movies or crew movies, and I couldn't pass on Captain Sulu. So that was another one that just came through. So that was it. So again, a lot going on. Next week, I'm sure we're gonna get, or this week we're gonna get a ton of Hot Toys figures. Tuesday we're gonna get another pre-order from XO6. Probably gonna get more teasers from J&D. We'll see if In Art show signs of life. Maybe they don't. Maybe they will. But there are other companies, right? So I'm expecting more. And then look, as we head in towards the end of the year, um, it'll be time for those top five lists and those biggest disappointment lists. So be on the lookout. More to come. And that's pretty much it. So again, hope you all have a great week. Hope you have a great collecting week. I'm sure there's going to be lots to discuss next week. And in the interim, thanks for watching, and we'll touch base on the next video.